The theme of tonight is sympathetic joy or joy, gladdening the heart. And I wanted to start with something that seems sort of discrepant from that theme. Bev won quite some time ago, as things were erupting in Israel and Gaza, sent us all a prayer that was written or sent around by a Jewish woman. And I just wanted to acknowledge what's going on in the world and in Gaza and hold it kind of in our awareness. And that actually is a part of the teaching about joy or gladness. It isn't that somehow everything is always joyful and wonderful. And we notice that as we look in our own bodies and our own minds, right? That things aren't always just splendid. But the task, the challenge, the practice really is about having a wider and a deeper holding, so that we don't get caught in the little blips of data that carry on, but we are able to hold things in this wider awareness. So in the interest of doing that with Gaza, with just the incredibly painful experiences of Israel and Gaza and the conflicts there, and all of the confusion around who's right or who's wrong or what to do. Just wanted to offer a bit of blessing. And the title of this is Prayer in This Time of War in Israel and Gaza. And she writes, "May those who are mourning be comforted. May those who are scared be sheltered beneath Shekinah's wing. May those who continue to forge the way towards peace be blessed with resilience and resolve. May we have the wisdom to discern which cycles to perpetuate and which cycles to interrupt, and may we build the relationships that make both possible. May those who have the privilege of sleeping safely tonight, even amidst worry, rest deeply enough to dream of a world liberated from violence and fear. May we make room for sadness, confusion, and grief to rise, and may we be tenderized by them. May love flow from our broken hearts, and may their yearning return us to our humanity. May we move at right pace with care and together in solidarity with those most impacted. May we be ever mindful of our role as co-creators, and may we use our power to create a world that's more loving, just, and peaceful." So many thanks to Bev for offering that to us. I'll take that message to Bev, and if she were here, I would have asked her to read it. Just it's sort of a nice remembrance that as we cultivate joy, it's not in opposition to something else. That we're cultivating joy as a very wide space in which to hold it all. So one of the final lines of that prayer says, "May we be ever mindful of our role as co-creators, and may we use our power to create a world that's more loving, just, and peaceful." And in my description of the talk for tonight, that actually you probably read as you came here, it says, a heart of peace and joy is always available. In these days of challenging circumstances, we can become overwhelmed and forget to remember that a heart of peace and joy is always available. Or in Mike Tyson's terms, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face, so that we get kind of narrowed right down, and we forget. We forget our practice, we forget our plan, as we get kind of collapsed into that immediate moment of suffering. And much of in our world seems less attentive to goodness and gladness and joy than its opposite. And I certainly noticed that, and you may also, as I read the newspaper in the morning, and I sometimes wonder, why on earth am I doing this? Starting my day with reading the newspaper. But I read the newspaper, and there's just so much that is not only negative, but like, let's talk about the bad things that are happening to the people that you don't like very much. You know, I chant every morning, and every morning I open up YouTube to chant. And I tell you, it's really hard because they offer all these, all these options. And very often, the majority of the options they offer are, let's talk about really bad stuff that's happening to people you don't like very much. So rather than sympathetic joy and delighting in the goodness of the world, it's, let's kind of get really contracted and negative and talk about what's bad out there. There's this, I just realized there was this line of clothing that is called, there's a line of clothing that is life is good, that one. There's also apparently a line of clothing that is called Schadenfreude, which is the German word that means, I hope really bad stuff happens to you. It's the delight, it's just what I'm talking about. It's a German word that means delight in the bad stuff that happens to people. And so there's this, there's a sweatshirt that you can buy that says Schadenfreude, which is like, I won't put it on tape, but you get the gist of it. So it's like Schadenfreude, and so much of our culture is like that. And indeed, we can be like that with ourselves, huh? When we're having a hard time, when we're having a difficulty, when we're confused, when we're feeling alone or abandoned or whatever, we can kind of turn on ourselves. Or am I the only one that doesn't? So that we can really practice in ways that are not wholesome, or our meditation isn't going the way we think it should, or it's not as good as somebody else's, or I'm not as wise in Buddhist teachings as somebody else's, or something like that. And so we can kind of just write ourselves off so quickly. We have these little Schadenfreude, little sweatshirts, inside, that we really can be quite harsh and harmful to ourselves. How does all that land in your body when you think about Schadenfreude, or you think about goodness or gladness? I did a little meditation before to invite you to tune into your body. How's your body doing right now? What do you notice? Anybody?
When you spoke about joy, I was relaxed. When you spoke about Gaza, Schadenfreude, my abdomen clenches.
Mm-hmm.
And when you said, how are things in your body? I was able to relax again.
Nice. Yeah. Stay with that. Why? Why were you, were you able to relax, or did you just relax when you turned your attention to it?
I just relaxed.
Yeah. You didn't do anything. You just
think I did anything.
So it's sort of like walking into the cat room,
Yeah.
and you're just seeing the cat.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. So we can, that's so beautiful. We can just notice the ways that our whole body, and if we're going through life with our whole body clenched like that, or not aware of it and not knowing how to be with it when we're clenched like that. Yeah. And it's just totally normal. It's not like I'm doing something wrong when that happens. I'm so sorry. So much for your Schadenfreude. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Anybody else? Anybody else have a, Jan?
When you, and on your lead up to today.
Pull your, yeah,
the
there you go.
Talking of that there's the capacity for joy and gladness at all times. And then in your speaking that today, I could feel my body feeling a relief to know there's an invitation to that.
Uh,
And just a relaxing into like, oh, it's not, I don't have to resist that
Beautiful.
because
Oh, that
things are
makes me
tough.
cry. Yeah,
But the relief feels good.
yeah, it makes me cry of happiness. Let me read to you something about one of my favorite teachers. Ajahn Suchito says, some of you who did the retreat recently heard me say this about 4,000 times. He says, the path is always one of bringing skillful conditions to bear. Okay, so far so good. Then he goes on to say, noting, making much of, expanding in, dwelling in skillful conditions and letting them have their effect to dislodge unskillful conditions. And that we can forget just what you're saying, it's really, I'm allowed to dwell in, linger in, rest in, breathe, breathe in skillful conditions. We're not only allowed, but it's the invitation of our practice. And it's not like, it's like you will have skillful conditions no matter what. That's not the teaching. That's what Ajahn Suchito calls the law and order approach to our spiritual practice. You will do this. It's not what he's talking about. It's about having that larger awareness that then is able to be aware of some of the kind of more contractions like Laura's talking about with some spaciousness, with some kindness. So we practice expanding, lingering in wholesome mind states as a way of cultivating that capacity. And even in the prayer, she says, may those who have the privilege of sleeping safely tonight rest deeply enough to dream of a world liberated. So may we rest deeply enough. Okay, thank you. Anybody on Zoom want to add anything to that? We good? Okay. Teachings on mudita or sympathetic joy, which is different from Schadenfreude. Sympathetic joy is mudita is a word from Sanskrit that classically means unselfish joy or joy in the good fortune of others. The opposite of those YouTube invitations that I get every morning. I take joy in your goodness and your good fortune. May this joy continue. May it grow. May it lead to your happiness. May it lead to your liberation. The practice of sympathetic joy. My friend Jerry taught me the Yiddish word kavelling. Some of you know it. It's to be delighted, to be extraordinarily pleased, especially to be bursting with pride in the accomplishments of another. Jerry was really wonderful at cavelling. He cavelled all the time. So gladness, goodness, happiness. I wanted to think about a few examples. And I have a couple and I'll offer some and then maybe you'll have some. I like to watch those videos. And speaking of YouTube, I like to watch the videos, like of America's Got Talent. And the person comes in and the judges are all like, oh, right, what's this going to be like? And then they're wonderful, and it just, even as I say that, I had a little thing going on in my body. And it's like, that is so fun. That is just so delightful to watch that and enjoy their success and their goodness. What else have I got for? Oh, the other one is I read that Taylor Swift gave her entire crew each a bonus of $100,000. So the cooks and the guys who drove the trucks and the people who, I don't know what, anyway, like over $1 million, millions of dollars really, of bonuses. And you just think, how cool is that, that these people got $100,000? It's like, how great is that? And, we like to watch those cute animal videos, with the cute little animals and somebody's rescued, little animals rescued. Or the one about the whale that gets caught in the net and then the divers jump in and they cut the net away and then the whale comes back and bumps them and says, gee, thanks, that's really great. That's so much fun. What do you like to watch that you enjoy like that? Barbara?
Well, I was thinking of when I was in Nepal and we were hiking and some crows got caught in the prayer flags. And these people and these prayer flags are like way up on this thing. And these people climbed all the way up there to help this crow get free. And all the other crows were kind of flying around. And it was just so, well. And at the same time, I kind of thought, would I see someone do that in the United States? So that's the non-Mudita part, I guess. But it just made, when you talked about the animals, it made me think about that.
Nice.
That scene of
Yeah.
they just cared so much about that crow, and all the other crows cared about that crow.
Yeah. Nice. Thank you. Other ideas? What else touches your sense of gladness in the goodness of others? Yeah, Robin.
Thanks. I don't know if this is exactly what you're going for, but my daughters and I, more so when they were a good deal younger than they are now, we would be what we called animal rescuers. We saw a turtle in the middle of the road, we'd pull over and put it off to the side. We had probably unwisely more than a handful of stray dogs in our car. So, I was enjoying this myself, but I was also living, watching them experience it. And the reason I laughed a little to myself. I don't know if you noticed that, because I was remembering this time when there was an enormous moth in our house. My older daughter, when she was little, she saw it, and it was inches across. And we looked at it for a while, and I was like, all right, well, it's time to do some rescuing. And she's like, all right. So I figured out a way I trapped it in this big Tupperware thing and just quickly brought it to the door and opened up the door and let it out. And within half a second, a full second, a bird grabbed it, brought it to the ground, ripped off its wings, and ate its body. And I don't know what the message is in there, but that's what I was thinking about.
Well, maybe we can just pause with the message of that moment of freedom, for that month. And maybe that's all any of us gets, is a moment of freedom, in our lives. Oh, thank you. I think of sympathetic joy that Bill and Bev are getting married on Saturday. And they met here in our group. Yay! So we can just feel that delight. And again, you might just kind of tune into your own body. How is it? How is it to notice delight? In other things, other beings, the intention to rescue that moth, the little girl who's determined we're going to save this moth. Yeah, Jane, and then we'll come to you, Susan.
There's a mishap. And it just is responded to with humor and acceptance and how life is this way. You know, so in other words, not sweating the small stuff.
Yeah. And when you see or hear or read of someone doing that, thank you. Yeah.
Well, as some of you know, I'm recovering from a respiratory illness, and I could feel sitting here while you were reading the prayer, you know, really suppressing this need to cough and really just trying to hold it in. And suddenly my Sangha partner reached over and handed me a cough drop.
Yeah. Yeah. So delight, huh? Delight in the goodness of others. Yay.
Without even asking.
Without even asking, how weird is that? Anybody else online? Anybody have anything to offer? Yeah. Darby,
I don't know if this counts as mudita. I've made it my practice for a couple of years now that if I have the thought when I see somebody, you know, if I like their hair, or often it's their hair, that I just say it out loud, and they're so delighted. And then I'm delighted that they're delighted. And just the other night I was at Kroger, and this little girl, I don't know, she's probably like 5 or 6, and she had the longest hair, like down to her calves, and all these little barrettes. And I just put my cart aside and I went over and I said, your hair, and I started to talk, and she looked so scared. And I backed off and I said, your hair is so beautiful. And then she smiled, and her dad, who clearly didn't speak any English, and she told him what I said. And then I remembered my Spanish, muy bonita. I think that was what was right. But the delight, and he just kept thanking me for saying that. So it's just so easy to spread joy.
Beautiful. And in order to, I actually don't need 2 microphones, do I? In order to spread joy, we actually need to feel it. So we'll do that in the second half. In the meantime, one of the ways that we experience joy is in sensual delight. And so it's time to explore the joy of cookies. So we will pause there and have some cookies at 6:46. Let's say no, it's actually, Sharon, it's 7:46. And we will come back in 10 minutes at 7:56. Unselfish joy. Joy in the good fortune of others. Classically, it's joy in the good fortune of others. And so we cultivate the capacity to do that. There are some ways, this is actually number 18 in my series of happiness. You know, I started out, you know, when I was 26 doing this series, and this is number 18. So this is on one of the Brahma Viharas, sympathetic joy. There are some ways that we can misunderstand the Brahma Viharas. I wanted to speak to those before we cultivate a little bit of practice. One is each of the Brahma Viharas is not, first of all, for others. Kindness, compassion, joy, equanimity. You know, we can imagine that somehow it's my job to kind of send joy out into the world, or send kindness out into that person. You know, that's not really what the intention is of the practice. It's not really about others. but rather is an inside job and a practice of our own minds and hearts. This is Andy Olinsky speaking to that point. He says, simply stated, he's talking about loving kindness practice, but it's true for all of them, is not about them. It's about you. You do not love other people because they deserve it or because there might be a spark of goodness in the hardest of hearts. The practice of loving kindness or sympathetic joy or compassion is for cleansing your own mind stream. The practice is for cleansing your own mind stream. You know, we're not out there like dropping jelly beans of joy. That's not the point of the practice. The point is that we cultivate a mind stream, a presence in the world of kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy. It is a healthy mental and emotional state, and the more often you can conjure it up and sustain it over time, the better off you are. As you are becoming a kinder person, even that's a little dicey, the way of saying it. We don't become a kinder person. We become more available to the loving kindness and the kindness in the universe. As we become more available to kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity, we will be more disposed to respond with the same to other people. You know, so we could even notice whether or not that's true. As we listen to the story, Laura was telling us during the break, a story about rescuing a little baby possum. Oh, very cute. You know, and does that help you be more disposed to joy or kindness? Just hearing that and cultivating that practice. So one of the ways we can misunderstand and get confused and really get stuck is that we can imagine that the practice is about being a better person. It sort of is in some ways, in the sense of letting go of those qualities of mind and heart that allow us to create the kind of violence that we're now experiencing in Israel and Gaza. And is there anyone in this room who has never in your own life created that kind of guidance, that kind of violence, you know, who has never erupted in negativity in a way that is harmful? Maybe not. I won't ask for hands. Okay. Where are we here? Oh, further, like all of the Brahma Viharas, another way we can misunderstand basically what I was just saying is that it's not something that we need to be and sustain. I guess if we are enlightened, we sustain it. But it's a practice. It's a practice. It's a practice. It's a practice. And it's not, again, it's not a law and order practice. You must do this. But it's a practice of cultivating relentlessly our response, our responses to life in ways that are wholesome. The practice, Ajahn Suchita said, is always one of bringing skillful conditions to bear. It's a practice of bringing skillful conditions to bear. It's not about putting a little thing on your refrigerator that says, this is how you're supposed to be, you stupid jerk. And if you were a better person, you would be doing this better. It's not about that. It's not like that. It's about a GPS. If you want to be happier and if you want to be able to be a wholesome presence in your own life and in other people's lives, here are some qualities of mind and heart that you can cultivate that will help. So that really goes to the third point I wanted to say, that we can make anything, even spiritual practice, into a self-improvement project. When I first was talking about happiness, people were saying, aren't I going to become, super narcissistic? If I just, really work on, my own qualities of mind and heart. And the answer to that is, of course you could. But you could do anything. You could become narcissistic about anything. I have sat in retreats with very narcissistic teachers. Seriously, who know a lot about Buddhist teaching, but who really weren't very nice to people. Who were very, very impressed with their own understanding. And it's really too bad about you. Which was sort of the attitude that that these wonderful teachings were offered. I once had a session with a body worker, and somebody asked me how it went, and I said it was really wonderful. She was very, very skilled. As long as I didn't mind the message, I'm happy to help you, you worthless worm. So just, minor problem, so that anything can become a narcissistic path. So happiness, pursuing happiness for me can become a narcissistic path. But so the challenge is, can we not then swing to the other side and think that it's somehow wholesome to not be kind or not be joyful about ourselves and our own experience? Okay. Which brings me to really the point of it all. Finally, if I get there. The Buddha lays out a whole sequence in one of his suttas, beginning with one's own virtue that leads to enlightenment. So the practice of these Brahma-viharas, and in this case of sympathetic joy, is first of all taking joy in ourselves. You're not all leaving, right? Taking joy in ourselves. So first of all, the practice is about cultivating joyful qualities of mind and heart in relation to our own virtue. And that's the place to start with all of the Brahma Viharas. This is Sharon Salzberg. Toward that end, a traditional Buddhist contemplation practice of mudita is to think of the good within us, the good we have done, the potential for good we can activate. We reflect on the skillful or wholesome actions we've done, on the times we've had difficult choices to make in areas of morality, and on the times we have tried to be truthful or loving. We reflect on the times we have cared enough to reach out beyond our timidity, on the ways in which we've tried to help someone instead of just carelessly letting the chance go by. So the practice of sympathetic joy is not, ultimately, it's about offering those qualities of joy to other beings. But unless we're starting with our own hearts and our own qualities, we're not going to get there, because it's going to be a thing that we're trying to become, do better, and criticize ourselves. So we're going to be working at cross purposes. Okay. I wanted to do a little bit of a guided meditation here. So toward that end, let's do a little guided meditation, then we'll come back and okay. So just maybe kind of let go of whatever crunched up body parts you have. And appreciating the support of the ground or the chair. Nothing you have to do to make that happen. Receiving the nourishment of the air. Receiving. the nourishment of the air. So scan through the body and notice any aspects of your experience that are maybe a little pleasant or even neutral. Perhaps it feels good to simply sit. You have a soft cushion under your butt. And now turning attention to other aspects of your life that are going well right now, that you can appreciate. Maybe some qualities of health. Thich Nhat Hanh used to talk about, I don't have a toothache right now. How cool is that? You have enough money to sustain you for the day. And you might notice any of these examples that, what might come up immediately is sort of that little Schadenfreude voice that says, yeah, but you might not have enough money tomorrow, And if that happens, then just notice that, but don't give it a lot of airtime. Just keep coming back. Maybe you have enough time to do some of the things that you like to do, or resources. What are aspects of your life that are going okay right now? That are going reasonably well? And is it possible to feel any qualities of goodness about that? Any sense of gratitude? Ajahn Suchito, when he does this meditation, uses the example of having a warm bed that you don't have bombs falling on your head. Well, that's kind of nice. Any qualities of appreciation. And notice how the sense of appreciation might register in the heart or mind. Perhaps some quality of warmth or ease or energy. See if you can let go of any ideas about how big it's supposed to be or exactly what it's supposed to be like. We're just looking for any quality of ease or warmth or goodness. And staying connected now to aspects of yourself, some of your own good qualities, perhaps those that others have recognized. Good qualities that you appreciate in yourself. Seeing if you can open to and acknowledge some of your strengths, anything that is skillful or beneficial. And it can be, again, very mundane. I used the example earlier, which is one that really landed for me, of putting my keys in the same place. I found my keys very easily when I decided to leave tonight. I did a good thing. I put my keys where they belonged. Yay. Doesn't always happen that way. So it can be really mundane, you know, simple. I fold the laundry, put it away. If you notice some small voice that discounts or disowns, you can just simply notice it and not give it a lot of airtime. Not tune into that channel right now. Come back with the intention to appreciate your own good qualities. You know, if it's helpful, you can put your hand on your heart or your belly, wherever, if that's useful. And, you know, may I appreciate my own good qualities. May I take joy in my own good fortune. May this joy continue. May it grow. May it lead to liberation. May I appreciate my own good qualities. May I take joy in my good fortune. May this joy continue. May it grow. May it lead to liberation. Sympathetic joy. Cultivating joy in goodness. Feeling into this energy of appreciation and joy in this body, this heart, this mind. And just notice how it feels in the body to touch even a tiny bit of mudita, of sympathetic joy. With respect to your own heart, your own body, your own mind. What's interesting? Kristen.
I don't know that it's so much interesting as much as just the ease that comes with the simple invitation,
Ease.
the ease and the willingness to just open to it.
Beautiful.
Just the simple invitation, but it is a practice.
Right. So we could appreciate, know that as we open to this ease, in our own being, that when we encounter the little possums of the world, we might be more inclined to be happy for them too. Huh?
The practice obviously supports the ability to call upon that ease, even when it's not so easy, right? Even when it's particularly difficult and
Right.
challenging,
Right.
but to practice it even at times when things aren't so challenging.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah. What we can do is we can jump, we can read these teachings, and then we can jump to the most difficult person and then go, this is what I should do. I should be, the law and order way of practicing. This is what I should do, and I should do this, and I should be a better person, and I should be a better practice, and you notice that when you cultivate this ease, it's easier, huh? The next step is easier.
That the situation is easy,
That's
It-
right.
right? It's just that there's more ease in being able to be with
That's
it.
right. Thank you. Beautiful. Other thoughts? Who? John, yes.
Yeah, Sharon, thank you so much. This has been a wonderful, thought-provoking talk. I was hoping to get a little clarification. At the start, when you were talking about the Brahma Viharas, and you described them as being skillful ways of, say, purifying our thought process, I made a mental note that they were probably different than virtues as codified in Western civilization. But then in the latter part of your talk, and even in the sutra, the word virtue came up,
Mm-hmm.
and even talking about feeling good about our own qualities, and qualities kind of are often defined relative to social norms, social behaviors that are good for society. So could you say a little bit about how virtues and Brahmaviharas compare and contrast?
I don't know that I can, other than where you're heading, I think with it, that basically they're all in the same ballpark of virtue. So I don't know that, I don't really understand myself why the Brahmaviharas are sort of separated out. Because in other places, they're not separated out. So somebody knows that the answer to that. One of the things that you might consider is just what qualities of mind and heart enable the sort of ease that Kirsten was just referring to. I should talk to you this way. You're here. What are the qualities of mind and heart that enable the sort of ease that enable us to remember that even though there's this I who has, her own shoes and her own watch and stuff like that, there's this I, that none of these qualities belong to me. That they're just part of the goodness of being, of the universe. And so what I am doing is really tuning into qualities of mind and heart that allow me to recognize and experience non-separation, even as I am in this form and as a separate being. So that for me, that's sort of helpful. And then I mean, I know I've wondered about your question too. I don't know exactly what the answer to that is. But it may be that I think the answer is something like the Buddha talked about virtues. And then over time, in different traditions, they kind of codified them a little bit differently in some of the Mahayana teachings. And people like Jean and Matt, I think Matt left, probably could answer that question a little better. But anyway, is that, yeah, sort of a non-answer. Does that help any?
Very much so. And it almost seemed like the Brahma Viharas could be a manifestation of one's part of the Buddha nature that then
Yeah.
help us go on to
Yeah.
act.
Yeah, I've heard Matthew Ricard, who is a monastic in Europe. He said he has been called the happiest man alive, and he said, I can't imagine having I forgot how he put it exactly, but it was basically I just can't even conceive of having ill will toward anybody. I was like, well, that's cool. You know. So to live a life in which you can't even conceive of having ill will toward anybody, you know, is really the practice that we're doing. Yeah.
Thank you.
How's that? I'm not quite there yet, but almost. Tomorrow morning, we'll be good. We'll be good. Other thoughts? Yeah, Barbara.
Well, I was just thinking about how helpful it would be to consider my own good qualities and how that would help me with not, okay, how can I, with not having an expectation to hear that from other people, because I know that within myself. So then I don't have that resentment of, well, why didn't you compliment me? And why didn't you notice that I did this? That can really get me into trouble. So I'm just noticing how helpful that.
How empowering that can be. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing that about that is that, if we can't bring that to ourselves, then people could be pouring appreciation on us, and we go, yeah, but you don't really really understand, so we can't take it in.
Yeah.
And if we can't take it in, we can't take it in. So it's really a practice, of cultivating the ability to take it in. And also, again, remembering these qualities do not belong to me, or you, or anybody. They don't belong to anybody. They are part of their awareness, and it's what other traditions call God. That these qualities are God. And so we're just tuning in our own way to the ways that God is manifesting in Barbara.
Forgive me.
No, sorry.
So is this working? Yeah.
Yeah.
This was a very interesting experience for me because generally in a guided meditation or an experience, there's a sort of a beginning and a middle and then a conclusion, This, on the other hand, I experienced profoundly differently, and that was the closest I could say is like floating weightlessly, maybe in water or maybe in air. And your words were bumping me around here and there, not in a linear way, but just some of the words would bump me and bump me. And it was quite a profoundly different kind of experience and very, very joyful.
Nice. Beautiful. I'm really happy. Yeah. There. I'm gonna, yes, one more. Eli.
I was noticing at your prompt to I don't know, noticing gratitude for the fact that there aren't bombs falling on my head, or that I have a roof over my head. I noticed that prompt a little bit of kind of some sourness.
Mhm.
The very basic, I don't know, things I take for granted, feeling some puzzlement over exactly where that comes from. I think part of it could be kind of a guilt, because it's making me to really feel grateful that there aren't bombs falling on me means that I need to acknowledge that that
Yes.
is something
Yeah.
happening.
Yeah.
And then I also think that part of it is, if I'm going to be that open to gratitude, that I can just go through every second of my day feeling gratitude for everything, that's almost a little bit overwhelming or daunting, and it feels a little more comfortable to say, oh, I'm just gonna not really feel totally grateful in this moment.
Mhm. Well, you point to some wonderful pieces, Eli. I wish we could expand on them a little bit more. I wish we could expand on them a little bit more. You speak to the sourness, or the other thing is that sometimes we can say, well, if I have a roof over my head, well, then I should do something. I should get on a plane and go to Gaza and, deliver meals, and, I should do something. And that isn't really what the invitation is. The invitation is to cultivate these qualities of mind and heart, and to cultivate them so well that whatever is mine to do manifests itself. But it isn't about having an idea that I single-handedly am supposed to, heal all the pain in the world. And then another piece you referenced is just like that sourness, it's like a little Schadenfreude voice in there, it's just like, it's like, well, you have to be careful, and you don't want to be too narcissistic. And, it's just like your mother said when you were 6, that you were being too selfish. And furthermore, you think you're good, and who do you think you are? And all these voices that I know some people have, but that we can kind of just keep subtly interfering. And so we just notice those and come back. We come back. And it's a practice. It's a practice. It's not a thing we are trying to be. It's a practice of cultivating. And so when it's too much, when you say, gee, okay, enough for now. Okay, good. That's a good quality. That's a wholesome quality to say, okay, enough for now. I really feel like I'm a little, more open than I can breathe with. And so I'm just going to step back from it for now. That's a wholesome quality. Awesome. We need to stop. And I want to read you a poem before we do. And Eli introduced it very beautifully. Thank you so much. Little plant here. The title of the poem is Clearing. And Martha Postlewaite wrote it. She says, do not try to save the whole world or do anything grandiose. Instead, create a clearing in the dense forests of your life and wait there patiently until the song that is your life falls into your own cupped hands and you recognize and greet it. Only then will you know how to give yourself to this world so worthy of rescue. So, blessings. Blessings, especially to Phil and Bev on Saturday. Yes. And have joy. You give us an opportunity to have joy. How cool is that? So thank you, everybody. Blessings. Be joyful.